This is the CameraRC Overview tutorial. In this tutorial I will cover the help system, finding controls, viewing images, program options, and provide a general overview of the CameraRC program. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start up CameraRC. Initially, if you haven't purchased the program, you're going to be going through the evaluation. 30-day evaluation is provided. We're going to just continue our evaluation period here. And CameraRC detects your camera type and initializes all the controls to the current settings in the camera. Once CameraRC is loaded up, sometimes you might find yourself either disconnecting or powering off the camera. If this should happen, you should get a warning message as follows, that you've disconnected, and you'll see a little error message at the bottom as long as the camera is disconnected. Once the camera reconnects, you'll get a notification that the camera is back up and running, and it will reload all the controls because it has to reinitialize everything to the current camera settings, and you'll be able to go ahead and run again. Notice the little "Don't Ask Again" box. You'll find that on a lot of warning messages. If you want to stop receiving warnings, just check that box and they'll stop. Later on we'll show you how to make it so that you get the warning messages again if you'd like them. Now that we've started up, we're going to talk a bit about the help system, tips and finding controls. So CameraRC has a typical Windows help system. Wherever you happen to set if you have your cursor set on a control, hit the F1 key, it'll bring up the help and it'll go to whatever particular control you happen to be set to. The help file, in addition to having information about all the controls, also has some essentially how to do various operations on using CameraRC. You can see those there. In addition to having help, CameraRC has floating tips here that pop up on all the controls. You'll notice, of course, that some controls, like those that are grayed out, may not provide that tip, in which case you can float over the text to receive your help message or your tip message. Those controls are usually, some controls are disabled just because of the setting of the camera. For example, a flexible control, if I switch to program mode, will disable the shutter speed and the aperture, but will enable the flexible program setting. Related to those tips is the on the help panel, which we just click to here along the bottom. You'll find that you can control how long you have to hover before a tip pops up, what the reshow delay on a tip is, and also how long to display a tip before it goes away. Currently we have it set here to 15 seconds. If you desire, you can disable the tip controls just by clicking this button, and that will stop the annoying tips if you don't want them. I'm going to leave them off so that we don't see them popping up all over the screen here while we're looking at things. Two other controls I'll just briefly touch on the help panel are the enable logging and the logging level. Should you encounter any sort of a problem where CameraRC is crashing or doing something that you suspect is incorrect, we may have you enable that. You should contact our support email, and we will probably have you turn on logging and capture some logs for us. We'll give you directions on getting those logs to us at that time. In addition to the help, we also have something that I find really handy, and that is our control finder. To use the control finder, you press the Control and F key together. This pops up a control finder box. You type in something about the control you're looking for. It doesn't have to be the name of the control. It can just be some information, a word that's in the tip. For example, I'll type in aperture, and we'll see that we see all the controls that have the word aperture in them. We can click on and hover on that, and we'll get an explanation for what each of the controls are for. If we find the control we're looking for, CameraRC will find it for you by double clicking on it. And you can see here we move instantly to that control, and you get a little blinking yellow indicator. When you consider there's hundreds of controls on some cameras, it's really nice to have an easy way to find your way around should you not know where a control is located or can't quite remember what name it goes by. Now let's move on to the main interface. We're going to capture an image. You'll notice when we press the shutter button, it goes black initially. That's to show you capture's in process, and then it will go back to its normal state. Here we've captured an image, and you can see it's displayed in the main image viewer in the center of the screen, and you also get a thumbnail of it. The thumbnails are used for navigating from image to image. So we'll also capture another image here just to show how that works. Now we have two images captured, and you'll see that if we click on a thumb, we will move to the appropriate image. While you're on an image, you can zoom in on it or zoom out by clicking on the central image and using the scroll wheel. Also, you can right click on the mouse and you can do other operations on the image. Notice that none of these actually changes the image that's saved. These are only affecting the viewer. So if we zoom in, you'll notice that the image is a little has poor resolution. That's because this is the image here is just a preview image. If you'd like to see a higher resolution image, just double click on the image you're viewing here, and you'll see that we get a high resolution image that we can also zoom in on and pan about to check on. We'll close that, or we can also make that image window a different size if we desire. We kind of have our choice of how big we want it, and you can resize that. You could have it off on a separate window if you have multiple windows. Having a large image like this can be very useful when you're doing something like portraits and you want to be able to pop up a large image that you've captured. In addition to being able to change the size of that window, you can also grab and change the size of the main window if you desire here. So we can see ourselves resizing the main window. And let's see, a couple other pieces of image related information. We'll go over here to the options. We're currently not showing focus points, but we can show the histogram for the current image. And we can also show the image tags associated with the current image. And you can see here that you can see the various settings on the camera and shutter count, etc. for the last image captured, or for the currently displayed image, I should say. So if we move between images, you'll see we move to a different histogram and a different set of image information. Once again, if you have multiple monitors, you can move these off to one side, or if you have a larger monitor that I'm showing here, that could be used as well. As I mentioned, there's also show focus points. These only show up when you capture a new image. So here we changed show focus points, and now if I capture another image, you can see here we've shown the focus points that were used on that capture. If we focus a little bit on the thumbnails, you'll see that the new ones always come to the upper left when you get one, and then they go across and then start filling in on the next row. You can select images using standard clicking operations. If you want to select all images, you can use the shift and control shifts. Also, we have a select all and unselect all. You can save images or remove images from the queue. Removing images does not delete any saved images. It just removes those images from the queue. If we take a look at the options, we'll see that we can set how many thumbnails we are keeping, up to a maximum of 20. And we can set whether we want to save images automatically on capture. That's an option I really recommend having under most circumstances to prevent incidental deletions of images that have yet to be saved. You can show thumbnails on capture. That causes the thumbnail tab to pop over when you shoot, regardless of where these lower tabs are set. You can clear the image on save, which will clear out any images, the thumbnail images when they're saved. You can also remove an image if the queue is full automatically. A couple other things we'll cover on this page, or one other thing we'll cover on this page, is the Clear Don't Ask button. And as you can see here, that we just check that if we want to clear the Don't Ask again, and it will just automatically ask if you want to clear them, and if you say yes, it will go off and clear them. The set capture key will be covered during the capture video, the capture tutorial. And finally, there's the ignore AF failures. When you autofocus, if the camera's not able to autofocus, and we'll demo that once here, you'll get a warning that it's not able to autofocus, telling you to check a few things. If you check and you'll notice you get a little warning at the bottom. Now we'll shoot one, clear that warning out. If you again go over here, and if you set it to ignore autofocus failures, and now will cause an autofocus failure, you'll see that you just get a warning at the bottom and no image is captured, and the capture returns to its normal cleared state up here. The final, along the bottom, we also see down here that we had our warning and our message box and our battery settings. The other items along this bottom tab we'll be covering in the shooting and saving videos, or else in the interval video tutorial. So we'll cover those then. Along the top, we have a set of tabs. The first are the Save tab here, that again will be covered in a separate tutorial. We have image details. So here's where you could put in your information about the artist name, copyright, image contents. This is very nice for inputting text, since you don't have to go letter by letter, but you can, as I'm showing you here, you can just type in what you want, and it's stored to the camera instantly. So very simple and easy to use, very handy. We have a Save and Load Settings tab. This allows you to save the current camera settings. This saves everything that's camera associated, and we also have a load camera settings. So when you switch to the save camera settings, you will, as we'll demonstrate here, you can save away, for example, your portrait settings. In this case, I'm just going to resave some file name that I have there, but you can just create a new file name for whatever you want to save. We'll just overwrite that existing one. It takes it a few seconds to save those settings. Now I'll just show you how that works. Let's say we changed the camera since then, and we're now in color temperature mode, and we're in manual exposure. Now I'm going to load those camera settings, and you'll see that we go back to auto and program mode when we reload the camera settings. So we select it. Takes a little time to download. since it's reading all the controls out of the file and resetting the camera, and you'll see now we're back to auto and program mode. So this is really nice if you go out shooting or you've done some shooting and you want to save away those settings. You can just hook up to CameraRC, save them away, and you quickly have them available for future use. A lot easier than having to write down your settings. The custom banks just allows you to rename your custom bank and select the current bank that's being used for those cameras that have shooting or custom banks. Here we're going to change the name of this to new bank, and we have to hit the rename to save that, and we'll call this custom bank 4. And we'll rename that one, and it's as easy as that. Once again, very simple to put in new names or to change the names as you need to. The final tab up here is the camera details. You can see here that we've got things like the lens info and the white balance and the current focal length that we're using. Along the right side here we have the information related to capture. We'll cover that in the capture video and live view in the live view video, so we're not going to go over those. In the dials setting here, we can customize our dial settings, and that includes things like reversing the exposure indicators. These are all settings that you can find in your Nikon camera book. We can also set the date and time, and we can either set that, manually enter it and set it, or we can automatically set it to whatever the current computer time is by hitting the CSET button, which will reset it. You see right now it's providing an indication of the current time on the camera. Timers and AE lock is just for setting these. Again, you can find out about these in your Nikon camera manual, as you can the button settings, and this is where you can set up button assignments and set up the multi-selector button. It makes it very easy to select and set these various settings up and save them away, as I pointed out. These end up usually in the bank settings. Finally, along the bottom here we have the live view focus settings. That'll be explained with live view, and the focus settings that'll be explained with the capture tabs. Going over to the left side here, we can see that we have our white balance and picture controls. I have separate tutorials for those. The autofocus gives you control over all the various autofocus controls that are available. Some of these, like the autofocus area, you can't set because it's a manual setting on your camera. Now there's many cameras have manual knobs that have to be turned to change certain settings. Since obviously CameraRC can't change those manual buttons, those can't be set unless you first lock your camera. Many of the settings are available once the camera is locked. So here I'm going to lock the camera, and you see now the focus area mode is available, and I can change it to dynamic. If I switch back and unlock the camera, you'll see it'll switch back to what the physical switch is set towards on the camera. This also applies, for example, with some of the other models that have where the exposure mode control is a physical button. Unless the camera's locked, you won't be able to change those controls. As we go down, we've got the metering exposure settings. Again, controls like this, you can find information on these in your camera manuals, and you can also get our little mini tips if you need to, or help on these controls. We'll move down through the shooting and display settings now, and then finally to the flash, where you can set up all the various flash settings. You can see here if I bring up the flash, currently the flash is closed. If I open the flash, it goes into a ready state. I can set it up right there. If we have an external flash connected, we'll get an indication of that down here, and you're able to set some settings on the flash, for example, the flash compensation. Finally, we have bracketing, and for bracket shooting we also have a separate tutorial that goes over bracket shooting with CameraRC. So if you're using some cameras, for example a Nikon D40, you may not see all the same tabs and controls that we have on this setting where I'm running with a D300. So I'm going to shut down CameraRC real quick, which you do need to do if you're switching cameras. I'm going to turn off my D300, and now I'm going to connect to a D40. And we're going to turn the D40 on, and then we're going to bring up CameraRC. You can quickly see that it's determined it's a D40 and reloaded all the settings for the D40. You'll notice there's significantly fewer controls along each side, and there's no live view mode. These are all caused because the D40 has fewer capabilities. And also, as I pointed out, the exposure mode you can't set unless you first go and lock the camera, in which case you can see here now we can control the exposure mode when we've locked the camera. Additionally, focus points are fewer, etc. So I'm not going to, other than that, everything operates basically the same with CameraRC. So I hope you've enjoyed this overview and that it gives you some basic instruction on how to run CameraRC. If you'd like more details, please see our other tutorials where we go over things like how to shoot, how to use live view, white balance, picture controls, interval shooting, etc. Thanks again.